Hello and welcome from a very chilly Dunedin. I'm James Hacon and I'm from Kiwi Dreams, based in Dunedin. We're a consultancy business and work with a number of different industries. I suppose my specialism is the tourism and hospitality industry. I would like to thank Michelle Ackers, who I believe is joining us just here now, who was the founder of the Tourism Industry blog, of which many of you, I'm sure, regularly check into and make sure that you're keeping up to date with. It's a number of contributors, and it's a great site that Michelle runs there, so thank you very much, Michelle. So I'd also like to introduce John Owens, who's a fellow director here with me at Kiwi Dreams, and he's going to be pulling the strings from the back end. And just to clarify, tonight's webinar is audio only, and it will be being recorded, or it is being recorded, as I say, so it will be loaded up onto the Tourism Industry blog afterwards. Our guest this evening is Genevieve Atkinson from Fossick. So welcome, Genevieve.
Hi.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Fossick and what you do.
Sure. Well, I'll describe myself as a traveller rather than an entrepreneur. Probably the most interesting thing about myself is I set a goal to see 50 countries before I was 30. I managed to get to 49, and subsequently have been to a couple more. So yeah, I'm pretty enjoy the travelling side of it rather than working in the travel industry. Fossick came about, and it's probably the little bit cheekiest way to describe it, is like the locals version of TripAdvisor. To me, TripAdvisor's key audience are the US and European markets, and the majority of the reviews are actually from that audience. And as a traveller, I personally feel there's a bit different between a customer who is arriving on a New Zealand trip of a lifetime trip, basically, and me going to Rotorua for a holiday. So I felt that there was a definite lack in the market for basically a local site that detailed locals' reviews, because our expectations around travelling are different, and that's really where Fossick came from.
And I suppose that leads very clearly into what the subject is tonight, obviously, which is tackling the subject of review sites, which I suppose at times can be seen as somewhat of a contentious issue within our industry. We'll go straight on to the first question that we've pre-prepared, Jen, and that's, why do you need reviews?
Sure. Well, it's fascinating. The obvious answer to this is because customers are actually looking for them. There's some really interesting graphs out there on just looking at Australia and New Zealand, and the trend for search is just basically on a nice little upward curve for people searching for reviews. Now, I always like to think that as Kiwis, we like to think that we're innovative and out there. But in reality, in the internet space, we're always a couple of years behind the US and the UK. And if you look where the US and the UK are in terms of reviews, it's just common practice. So we're starting to review everything these days. It's not just accommodation, it's technology, it's books, it's kids' toys. And this has really come about, in the changes, I mean, Facebook's a part of it, but it happened before that. To enable us to readily and easily comment on stuff, making the average Joe a publisher, essentially. So why do you need them? Is essentially customers want them. And the second major reason is to do with the fact that we're bombarded with advertising, and we don't particularly trust it anymore. And regardless of whether or not you're a completely honest and upfront accommodation provider, we're all tarred with the same brush. In that we have relatively oversold our properties. Occasionally we might lie, and generally exaggerate a little bit so that customers are a touch wary. A classic one in researching this, I was looking up and reading a few blurbs about accommodation, and I came across one for the Auckland airport that said that the Auckland airport was about 10 minutes from the Auckland CBD. So for a customer arriving, and staying at the Auckland airport thinking that they could just dash into the city, I'd be a tad annoyed. And that's really where I think reviews have come from, is this slight wariness of customers towards what we say about ourselves and wanting to really hear what somebody who's independent thinks. And so those two things really marry up as to why essentially we need them.
Yeah, I think I'd really kind of come in at the back of that as well and agree with that. That I think what social media and these kind of websites are really starting to do for us is, I suppose, making us more open and more truthful in the respect of what when we're describing our businesses and within the way that we market generally. It's a very interesting subject. I mean, I suppose that then moves on to something that we talked about, and it's on the list, and I kind of had to laugh when it came through. And one of the points here is stop bloody moaning.
I guess it comes back to the stop bloody moaning is, to me, about if you've got a bad review, and we're all going to get them, because you can't be all things to all people. It's actually really easy to fix, because if you've got a bad review, then you yourself actually believe that you're better than the review has described you to be. Which, if that's the case, then it's just a matter of simply going out and getting more reviews. Because the issue we've got with reviews in general is that the people who write them are the people who are highly motivated. So they're either had a great stay and really want to give something back, or they've had a terrible stay and really want to tell other people about it. So it's the average Joe in the middle that we're missing, that's had, yeah, a good stay, they enjoyed themselves, the service was good. So they're the people we need to capture. So stop bloody moaning comes from the fact that actually it's a really simple solution to dealing with negative reviews. It's just to get more accurate or more middle of the ground reviews, and that's just about starting to ask people and to encourage people to write them. But I guess it's come about, I think, because we're afraid, so therefore, and maybe our first initial impressions have been with a negative review, so then we just back off on the whole thing because we're worried that that's all it's ever going to be. It's just an opportunity for people to complain.
I think that's a really interesting point, is that I think everybody thinks of review sites and looks at negative reviews. But I've certainly seen some figures coming from the international site that you talked about at the beginning, and I don't know how specific around percentages it is, but I remember it being very high percentage of all the reviews on TripAdvisor seem to be of a positive nature. And I mean, I've got to say, from my experience in the tourism industry and as an operator, and I've got to say most of the reviews I've received, and when you look through most websites, I've got to say I think that people are quite often more inclined to say positive things about your business than negative things. I suppose that's is that something that you see on Fossick?
Absolutely. I would have said we get maybe 5% is negative and the majority is positive. And I think it comes back to the fact that, you've paid money, you actually want to feel like you've had a holiday or a good time. And most people don't actually want to dwell on any issues. They're actually more interested in, yeah, it was great, telling other people about it, recommending. But you get the issue, whereas if you've had a terrible stay, then those ones do appear. And that if people have been wronged or feel that they've been wronged, they really want to make a deal about it. But if you're actually in the process of getting lots of reviews on an ongoing basis, that one comment shouldn't actually make a difference, really. But the other thing to look at too is about expectations. Now, up in the news media recently, we've had a lot about the Auckland airport and some pretty dire places out there that came up in a Herald article recently. But some of it, I think, is about changing the expectation prior to someone arriving, which actually improves your reviews. So yeah, it's quite a fascinating concept in terms of your expectation prior to coming, and then what happens, and then how that affects your review.
I think that it also goes back to that whole making sure that you're slightly under-offering or offering at the right level with your marketing, and then over-delivering when people come, and kind of making sure that it isn't the reverse of that, isn't it? It's not over-offering and under-delivering.
Absolutely, and that's the times that people want to write a review because they feel like they've been cheated.
That leads into the next question that I was kind of going to ask, is that I suppose one of the things that I've had before is when I've tended to be involved in higher star rated hotels, and people go, well, of course you're going to get good reviews, James, because you're 4 or 5 star and we're only 3 star.